This is a HeadGum podcast.
Celebrity Book Club.
Throughout the whole book, when, he'll be talking about, travel, he'll be talking about food. And he's like, women are in a very serious place when they are grocery shopping, okay? When they're putting things in their basket, they're not there for the laughs, okay?
And in the 50s, I'm sure a woman was in a very serious place shopping. She was
getting beaten at home.
She was probably very depressed.
And then it's like her only time leaving the house, and she's just being like, well, if I don't buy, Roger's, correct Schlitz beer, then just he'll be like, Carol, what is this in the fridge? And she'll be like, it was new at the store. And he's like, well, I come home and I expect a Schlitz beer. And that's what I expect after a long day at work.
Of course, nowadays, I feel like maybe the modern wife is also depressed, but for different reasons. Because, her husband has erectile dysfunction and, he's on Roman and, she's having so many CBD seltzers and she's on hers. And, she's absolutely, zonked out of her mind, just, wandering associated in a daze.
No, and she's bringing home, a different kombucha. And he's like, I only like Trilogy. So... And she's like, well, this, new, pilot he was like, okay. And then they're silently, sipping the new booch.
That was a really good kombucha opening sound.
I've been working on that.
Who's that knocking at the door? It's all your friends, you filthy whore. Your husband's gone and we've got books and a bottle of wine to kill. It's Hollywood. It's books. It's gossip. I'm shook. It's memoirs. It's martinis. It's Studio 54. Celebrity Book Club. Come read it while it's hot. Celebrity Book Club. Tell your secrets, we won't talk. Celebrity Book Club. No boys are allowed. Celebrity Book Club. Say it loud and proud. Celebrity Book Club.
Buzz me in, I brought the Cuervo.
Hey, best friend! What's up?
What is up?
Happy International Women's Day.
Oh my God. Happy International Women's Day. Happy Advertising Day to you and us and the podcast.
It's National Advertising Awareness Month, and I'm so glad that we can finally draw some attention to this critical topic that not enough people know about.
I'm Lily, by the way.
I'm Steven.
And today I whipped us up some cocktails.
You whipped us up, actually, what I have to say is one of your most delicious inventions.
I'm calling it the Ogilvy in honor of David Ogilvy.
One of the world's foremost, if not the world's most famous.
Madman.
I was going to say madman. Of the madman era. He was an advertising man in the 40s, the 50s, the 60s. His book is called Confessions of an Advertising Man. And there's a good black and white image of a good, strong British man in a suit holding his glasses.
He's a Scotsman, actually.
Right. Actually, Scotland is in Britain.
Well, it's interesting, and I think we'll get into
Britain
this.
is made up of Scotland, England, and Wales.
Right. And formerly Ireland, before the Troubles.
Well, Britain is just that island.
Okay,
the British Isles is the two islands. And then Northern Ireland, which is the northern half of Ireland, is part of the United Kingdom.
Now, David Ogilvy's, his parents were Irish, by the way.
Right. And good on him.
Good on him. But now in Scotland. Anyway, the drink I made is, I made an elevated drink, I think, of what David Ogilvy drinks every night.
Which is Puerto Rican rum and Schweppes, because he only drinks and eats and consumes products of the clients that he works for. Which I do think is completely insane.
Right. Well, it's also, it's a good way to kind of start it off because it's, do we even believe him?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Well, okay, so he works for, the Tourism Board of Puerto Rico at one point, and he does give himself credit
he kind of, fully claims that he,
No, he was just and there's nothing made me prouder than to see the villages that had suffered in poverty for 400 years until I wrote my one advertisement, and then their economy increased 400% due to tourism and foreign investment. And it's just okay, white savior,
white savior, canceled, But first up, before we even start canceling
you, Dave. Canceling this dead advertising man from the 40s.
Just being so this was a country and they were starving for 400 years till I printed one ad.
But it isn't, okay, so then
I'm sure he did, increase tourism to Puerto Rico.
Well, he, does these travel ads for, Germany and, some other European countries, and he's always just yes, and then just, tourism increased to France by 59%, and, people finally knew that you could fly to France for the first time and, stay in a hotel hotel for only $59, and it was so much cheaper than they had ever imagined.
Well, and he's also always like, I got like people to start visiting wet, damp England instead of like the sunny isles of Italy.
Right.
And he said, how'd you do that? And he said, advertising, honey.
And I think, there was a lot more room to, change people's minds back then because there was just less information. There was no social media. And you're Holly Housewife and you're flipping through Life magazine and you see this ad for England and you'd literally never heard anything good about England ever. You just had the only thing you'd ever heard was
Kings, rain, stews,
death,
Sherlock Holmes.
boring, like sod off,
Well, so I mean, this
anyway,
book is wild.
Yeah,
it's a
wild.
feast, really.
It's a feast for those who are into branding and those who are into advertising, and it tells the story of truly an iconic, towering figure in the industry.
Oh, tap, tap, tap.
It's like someone's hammering.
Yeah.
It's like now on a Monday.
Yeah. And now's the day you didn't do it Sunday,
Right. I feel like that's more of the sort of chore spring cleaning day of the week.
Yeah, but let's talk about a real man. David Ogilvy.
David
so
Ogilvy.
at times I was like, is he gay? You know what I mean?
Well,
but then you realize just men of the past have culture.
A, men of the past have culture. B, British men are all fastidious and fancy and they all care about their tea and they want things in a certain way. And they do know the difference between 18th century hutches and mid-modern hutches.
Right. And a Chambray sauce and a Secure liqueur.
Right.
Oh, the tapping. We apologize. I would never invite you over to listen to a podcast with this tapping.
No, it's...
But darling, that's today, and that's what's happened.
Unfortunately, everything's gone downhill.
There's a point where he's talking about, just jumping ahead a moment, just to give an example of, I think, his culture, where he talks about how a lot of people, will just drink whiskey because of the advertising, but, won't try this French liqueur called, Sacré or something.
I mean,
he's like, and I'm sad for them.
I mean, listen, that is very analogous to my experience branding an aperitif brand, which I worked on last year.
And if our listeners, don't know, Stephen is a current day madman.
So I actually am a madman. I have worked in advertising and branding for the past 5 years at various agencies in New York City.
I feel like also both of us, we, our favorite types of movies, we grew up in the genre of rom-com where every single person is a junior ad exec.
Yeah.
Which is what really I feel like, I'm not in advertising, but I love the field. I love an ad. I dream in ads.
I dream in ads too. And obviously, I'm very sensitive to advertising. I mean, so obviously, our favorite movies are
How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days,
where he works at an advertising firm, she works at a magazine,
right?
Which is the other job that you're allowed to have in all rom-coms.
Yeah, so magazine, because I was like, wait, is she in branding for
Kate
Jules?
Hudson does work at advertising. It's a movie where she dies of cancer, and she actually works at an agency in New Orleans.
Yeah.
And she, of course, has the scene where she's trying to pitch the condom company, and she comes into the room and dumps her purse on the conference table, and it's just 60% of condom purchasers are women.
Do your research. I also feel like, so you started out, and I feel like your career started out in very internal advertisement.
I mean, still, that's a lot of the work I do. It's I'm working on the account for 6 months, and we're just coming up with an internal rallying cry for employees, and you're having 3-hour meetings internally with your own coworkers at the agency about the rallying cry. On a whiteboard, someone's writing, stay different, stay extraordinary, stay yourself, stay extraordinarily different. And then at the end of the week, you're having a check-in meeting with this account communications girl from named Lauren, and then it's you and the Lauren from your office, and then the Lauren from are on this communication.
Lauren, this is Lauren. Lauren, this is Lauren. Meet Lauren. Lauren, this is Lauren. Lauren, this is Stephen. Stephen, meet Lauren.
And then you've sent over the deck before, and Lauren has read it, and Lauren's just so I just want to flag a couple of things, and I do think that stay different is really strong and really good. I'm just a little bit concerned about the word different and how that's going to read to the higher ups, and I don't want to show them something that I think might make them a little bit nervous. And so I just want to have another conversation about that word, and then Lauren's being that's a really good call it, and thank you for saying that. And then another 3 weeks go by, and then you finally do present Stay Different, and then they're just so ultimately we decided to not do a new rallying cry. And all that would ever be is a poster in the break room that some poor janitor has to look at that says Stay Different.
Stay Different. So
I just want to back up a little quickly just to set the context. So David Ogilvy started a advertising firm that is now known as Ogilvy and Mather, and it is still one of the big advertising agencies.
Before this, I didn't know who Ogilvy was.
Right. So if you talk to a madman like this, you said Wyden, they know you're talking about Wyden. You say Ogilvy, oh, you're talking about Ogilvy and Mather. You know what I mean? People know what that means. But a lot of the work these days is being done in branding and identity agencies.
Mm-hmm. Like, I feel like you're doing the branding and then it's, then they're going to the ad agency and then it's back and forth and it's 90 Laurens.
But the sort of the world in which she describes where it's like you're working for hours to come up with this insane pitch to like give to Nike, it's like that kind of only still happens for like Super Bowl ads.
Probably. And it's crazy. Okay, what do you think about this? So he has this whole thing about how he won't do, if he has two clients and he won't like put them in an ad together because someone always gets the short end of the stick.
Yeah, I know. I mean, we're always trying to do that like on an agency where it's just being like, oh, we could like do some synergy. But it is awkward and I wouldn't do that.
I think it is because then when I think about it, when it's like Chevy cars, like win a Coca-Cola Pepsi t-shirt with the Chevy,
it's pathetic.
Then
it's
Coke is
desperate.
like the little silly free t-shirt you get.
Right.
Chevy's the big boy.
Right. And it's like, I mean, I guess nowadays everything is a collab and it's so just like whatever. Like,
well, I think they're talking more sweepstakes vibes and not like something X this.
Right. They're not talking
like
about an
UGG X Latta.
Right. They're talking about more just like one advertisement where it's like, well, actually, this brings us to another point. So at one point he says he's like, that a real good agency needs one man at the top who's like this savant and like everyone.
Right, and everyone looks to him and he's the Lord.
And I do have to say, I kind of think that's true. Because so I worked in my experience, so I spent a lot of time at Wolf Olins, which is like a British agency that has a big office in New York. And it looks like the Apple store inside. It's like this massive white office and like
London, New York.
And it's like very frosted conference rooms. But there was no real like honcho like that everyone worshipped at the top. The work isn't really like life-changing and I don't think really like changed the industry in a big way, and like they like rebranded right before like ran into the ground, and it's like cool, like congrats.
Oh, sad.
And like that's another thing he says in this book at one point. He's like, don't take on like a dying client. It's just like,
well,
do you really want like the stench of death around you?
Truly, because I think, I actually was, when I opened this book, I was kind of awaiting like, are these going to be some super outdated points? And I think there are kind of more in terms of language when he talks about like saving Puerto Rico as a country.
Right.
But like his little isms are very true. He's like, there comes a point, if a product, they haven't had good sales for years, it's not the advertising problem.
Yeah, honey.
It's the product.
It's the product, okay?
And he can't turn that around.
As Lori would say, there's not a market.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing the market, so for me, I'm out.
I am out.
But to that point about a savant honcho, like Gin Lane is run by this guy Emmett, who like is this like cool skater downtown guy, and he definitely has like an aesthetic that is what like drives the whole company, and it's like the reason that people come to them and they like desperately beg him to like create their brands. Like they don't solicit any new business, which is something he talks about a lot in this book.
Right? He says, I get a new client every 2 years.
Right, and they come knocking because they're like, "What's what you do?" And like Jane Lane is sort of credited with like doing the whole like very ubiquitous startup design that everyone's familiar with of like hymns and like that sort of flat
No, because I
pastel.
can imagine a lot of branding agencies, they're like, oh, like we're all in this as a team and like everything, blah, blah, blah. But so.
And then you don't do anything cool and you just kind of copy what everyone else does because it's like too many people kind of saying yes to each other.
And they're like, that's so fucking awesome. Like, yes, yes. And then everyone's a little bit scared to say no. So Ogilvy trained in the kitchens of France.
Which is very David Chang.
Right. Well, very just like chefs.
Oh, okay. Very chefs.
Very chefs.
Yes.
So I think what's super cool about David Ogilvy is it's like being an ad man was like not respected in Britain because it's like that's like too gauche for the Britons.
Well, when we say respected, also we're talking about like British high society.
Yes,
because he definitely like went to Eton and he's like there's part of the book where he's just like, and everyone I went to school with then he became a prime minister.
Oh yeah, and he was like, and he became this lord and he became that lord. What's also deeply British about him is like the part about his childhood is 2 pages, and he talks about he's like, my father spoke Gaelic and my mother disinherited me and I think she made the good decision. Moving on, and you're kind of like, there was no like
upper British lip,
no American 3 chapters on the disinheritance.
Yeah, I mean, there's zero like emotion in this book other than just like one time, and he was like, and I was furious that I had lost the account. That's all that he really lets get under his skin is like work stuff.
He wrote. This is also so Shark Tank. He copyrighted this book for in a name of his son. So his like son
Oh, wait, that's so like Beyonce, I feel like. Doesn't like Blue Ivy own the rights to like something?
Lemonade. I'm sure it's very like giving your baby shares and just like copywriting something for them rather than giving them what, a PS5?
Yeah.
Give them a copyright. Give them a bond.
Give them a bond. I mean, or just sort of write them a check. I mean, there's a lot of
There's a lot of
ways that if you're rich, you can support your kids, and I do encourage you to pursue all those different directions. Wait, okay, but about him being British, can we just? There's 18 passages that are insane, but
okay, wait, just this part about his childhood and like being in a boarding school. He was, of course, like sent to boarding school at age 9, and he's like, when I suggested that Napoleon might have been a Dutchman because his brother was a king of Holland, the headmaster's wife sent me to bed without supper, whereupon she seized me by the cheek and threw me to the floor. He's no Paris Hilton provost.
No, absolutely
No would
not.
obviously believe women, and just like I don't think we should be throwing like children to the floor. But
oh wait, you're saying that like he's a Paris Hilton because he's not complaining about the abuse he suffered at the hands of his
just like, and my headmistress was correct because like you don't say that about Napoleon.
And she should have dragged me by my ear and slapped me with a thistle.
But I think he's also showing that he's a sassy little man. But you know, instead of just going, I think, straight into advertising and becoming a prime minister like everyone, he got that real life experience of like the 20s.
He traveled the world, darling.
So he went door to door selling like pots.
Yeah.
Did
you sell door to door?
No, but I once like was so desperate. I feel like at some point in my 20s and did like for one day like a door to door sign up for like this green energy. And I went with like this crew of people to like Sheepshead Bay with iPads. And it was like all commission based. And it was just like, we just had to like sneak into like creepy Sheepshead Bay, like massive apartment buildings where like all old Russian people live.
Knocking on the doors like 90-year-old women and just being like, do you want to switch to green energy?
Yeah.
You'll save 5% on your heating bill.
And there was like such like an election style Reese Witherspoon girl there like working. And I was like, so how's that? And she's like, no. And it's like some days you just like don't make anything and it is commission based. And it was like at 9 p.m. we'd like go back to HQ and the guy's like, great, you got the job. I was like,
I got the job, which doesn't make money.
Yeah, I was like, I'm absolutely good. And,
congrats.
You know, anyway, but that was the work that I put in. You know, sometimes you gotta go.
No, and that's really informed your
practice.
My
podcast.
Your podcasting practice and having a varied background.
Yes.
You know, when I first came into branding, I had a politics background, and they were impressed by that. They were like, oh, well, you know, you've written for politicians.
Well, it's kind of the same thing. You're just selling something.
You're selling, right? All you're doing is selling, and you're writing for someone else. I think one of the first projects I worked on at Wolf Olands was the Met rebranding. And that was, you know, that was a real chance to just sort of write really flowery, kind of like British, boring language.
Right. Dun, 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 dun.
And just like, oh, okay, like you can be sort of like fancy, because like politics is also kind of serious. And they were like, that works.
That made a lot of sense for that kind of translation.
Celebrity Book Club.
Okay, let's talk about just some favorite ads of ours. Let's go. I'm going to start this off. Favorite ad campaigns of all time. Number 1, the Herbal Essences shower orgasm.
Yeah, agreed.
Iconic campaign.
Yeah, I mean, and I think like...
My sister and I only used Herbal Essences growing up. 12-year-olds, you're using it. You're just being like, oh yeah, one day I'll have sex.
Yeah, I mean, it's so funny because that's so gendered, and I watched that and I was like, I won't be using that because I'm not allowed to.
Yeah.
But that worked for you. Like customer benefit to you of being like, this is fun.
I was like, this is hilarious. I mean, it was also a trickle down because I feel like, right, my sister bought it and she was Herbal Essences, like Venus Razor was very YM. And then I was like, oh, so this is what's cool. This is what like cooler older teenagers.
I'm, you know, so it's funny. Like, so we're talking about good ads, right?
Good ads.
What makes a good ad? Ogilvy says a good ad is something that makes you want to buy the product. And I think people of my advertising cohort are much more guilty of what he says is like they want to make entertaining ads. They want to make ads that they're like proud of or whatever.
Which is funny. And he says, okay, in one of he goes, good copywriters have always resisted the temptation to entertain.
See, I have to entertain myself. Otherwise, like, I don't want to be there.
I disagree here where he's very just like, he's hardly getting into television ads at this point. Like all advertising are these like massive articles in like Life magazine and Playboy where we has to like list every ingredient of carnation milk.
I do want to have my favorite ads, but we should just explain for 1 second the way that ads used to look is completely insane. There was like 900 words. It was like only print and everyone was reading magazines left and right. And it was just like...
He said he reads... He was like, the average woman, it's always like I read 10 magazines a week and the average woman reads 6 magazines magazines a day or something like that.
Like she's just going cover to cover in her sunken living room, and God bless her. And there's like
smoking Kent cigarettes,
and everything is just like this big hero image of the product, then some big headline that's just like soup tastes better cold, and then it's just like 16 more
small paragraphs, sans serif, 10-point font,
and it's like this whole thing where it's like everything was about trying to convince someone to like buy this certain product that they're already buying, but buy a different brand of this product. Also, everything was, I want to say, like in this sort of consumer staples category, like, or consumer discretionary, but it was like all this just like,
it's stuff you're already.
It's a lot of like Procter & Gamble kind of stuff. It's all or
cars, laundry, cigarettes, liquor.
You know, lifestyle brands didn't exist, and the idea that like one certain thing that you like didn't have like would maybe give you access to some sort of different kind of lifestyle like wasn't.
Well, I think
really...
that was things like the lifestyle brands were the cigarettes. It's like Camel, what was that? Your Pleasure? Or no, it's Newport Pleasure. Camel is like cool. Anyway, it's like Marlboro is like cowboy. Right. It's like
I think cigarette brands were the only ones that were like,
this is going to change your life.
This is going to change your life. Everything else was just like, this product will be better at doing a certain thing.
And it was so much more cars.
It was so much more function. And like, you know, and I always tell clients, I'm like, you know, emotion over function, sweetheart. Like, because at this point, I think, I do actually think that in some ways consumers are much smarter than they used to be. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
People know what works and what doesn't. They know what fucking toothpaste is. You know what I mean? And I think that like, it's like when Crest is always like 4 times as whitening, people don't give a fuck about that.
No, we all know that no toothpaste whitens anything. So now that's why we get into like charcoal toothpaste and, you know.
And it's like, if you're buying Crest, it's because you want to have the lifestyle of someone who buys utilitarian toothpaste because you just want to be old school and not spend that much money on it.
It's kind of so funny you say like Crest is old school because it is, but in my like mind, I feel like the 90s, like as a kid, I was like, Crest is cool. Like,
well, this
Crest
is because
like,
you are like spiritually Gen X.
Right.
And so like,
but I'm just saying, like compared to like
90s,
Arm &
like,
Hammer.
in your head, you were like 28.
I was 28 and I'm just like, yeah, I'm just this cool cat. Yeah, I go to like cool shows and I drive, you know, a Mustang and I brush with Crest and I smoke Newports for my pleasure.
I feel like you probably had like the sweetest flavor of Crest.
No, I'm just mint. You know, I'm mint to the end because I'm still mint toothpaste. I mean, I'm so mint ice cream and I chew gum constantly. You think I'm bubble gum?
I guess I thought you were like so cinnamon bubble gum. And
oh my, do you even know me? Cinnamon.
I'm just like, I'm thinking of 9-year-old you when you were like, I like football and pizza and cinnamon.
Sorry, cinnamon was, as a child, was way too spicy for me.
For you. No, that's true. No, I know that about you. I can't even give you a stick of Big Red. You'll
no, and now I'm like so hot.
Keel
like,
over.
I'm only in my like, let's just say late 20s. Have like gotten into like hot sauce and like total hot sauce culture. Like sriracha, anyone? But like I feel like I used to have like 1 squirt of sriracha on something and then my mouth would like blow up. Anyway, so all I'm saying is I'm mint till the end.
I mean, I'm a very Colgate girl, I guess, but I'll do Crest. To me, those
Colgate, random sauce.
It's not that random. It's sort of like one of the most major toothpaste brands that there is.
It's the random one of those two, though.
Okay, but I'm like saying I will take that over like an Arm & Hammer or a Tom's or some like
no Arm & Hammer is like from the 20s. You're like, I'm not pouring
intentionally
baking soda.
Tastes like salt or whatever, and it's like I don't necessarily need that. One of his do's and don'ts is always use photography and not illustration and advertising.
He said always use photography? Or
well, he said photography is better.
Yes.
That it's more eye-catching and people like it
Oh,
more.
right. Well, that's because I feel like it was like, even though it was the 60s, like photos were still kind of like new.
Photos were new and like illustration was weird. And I think that graphic design wasn't like so the sort of insane industry that it is now.
No,
like,
so there was the Campbell soup drawing and then it was also just so like the classic like and there father bringing the turkey drawing.
Right. And there was like one like Norman Rockwell-esque illustrator that you could hire. And like he was probably busy and like maybe you couldn't get him to like do your soup ad. But I do think that there is a tendency to overuse illustration in design now and in advertising because, and I think it's partially it's because photography is like, people are so worried that photography will read as too revealing of a certain class, region, race,
age, size. And so they're like,
let's just do little cartoons that relate to everyone. And then when you do have photography, it's always this like disembodied like hand of just like indeterminate age and ethnicity that's like coming in through the side, like holding a lime. And it's just like,
okay, let's talk. That's very that like breast binder that I bought recently. recently from just like a company that was like,
What's it called?
Good Works or something like that.
That tracks.
And it's like, that's, I feel like it makes so much sense because they're like, well, like, are we showing a trans man or are we going to show like this lesbian? Are we going to show
a white person? Are we going to show a large person? Are we going to show an old woman?
So it was like, instead, so they're like, fuck, so let's just like draw a weird icon for an 80s gym instead. That's like a shape jumping or something like that. And you're like, so I don't know what this is for now.
No, everything is now this shape and it's always these like women and they're always like kind of a little bit doing yoga. It's like, there's so much like.
No, it's like gone back to full like getting a big 90s XL free t-shirt for a race.
And it's, it varies 90s XL 5K. And it's all these
for
like.
Hunger vibes.
Walk for Hunger, like kind of leaping women of just like.
Shapes and colors.
Of shapes and colors. And it's just like, and some of the women are purple. And you're like, okay. I guess this could be anyone.
Oh, wait, we have to talk about how he hates billboards.
And I agree. Because you don't have time to read them. Unless you're a passenger, which there are a lot of in this country.
Yes, thank you.
Actually, 7 out of 10 women are passengers.
I'm really not anti-billboard because just to mention casinos for a minute, how many ads did we see for the new Tao opening at Mohegan when we were driving?
Yeah, I know what it makes us want to go to Tao.
And we were like, we have to go to
Tao.
Tao.
But I do think that as a driver, it's A, dangerous, and B,
it's
also
extremely dangerous.
It's like, it is an eyesore. But I also feel like he thinks it's an eyesore because he's from England, and so he's being so like, the American open road is beautiful.
Well, yeah,
and it's marred by these awful signs.
And he's a gardener, and he was like, I'm a man partial to landscapes. I mean, he honestly did sometimes. He was being very
English
my dad
because
he was being like, I love landscape.
Gay.
He was
but
gay.
That's
and he was
thing.
also
British
like, I'm
men
proud.
are all kind of gay.
Right. Which is kind of what I try to say to you and why I actually don't think my dad is gay.
Your dad is not British.
But he is of European descent. He's Italian. He's Italian, which, here's the thing. Italian Americans are very
indigenous, so therefore
yes, Italian Americans are very macho, very, like known as being Guido, but I feel like actual Italian men are like much gayer.
Well, again, I think they just have taste, and I think they care
opera,
about aesthetics.
And they're like
because they have a history and America doesn't, and I think that's part of the problem.
I want to talk about this part where I was really shocked, where he talks about like lesbians in movies, and I was like, "Who are you referencing?" This is very gendered, so just like CW trigger warning. But I do think this is like accurate. Okay, when I worked with Dr. Gallup, I was able to demonstrate that moviegoers are more interested in actors of their own sex than in actors of the opposite sex. True, there are few exceptions to this rule. The female sex kittens find great favor with male moviegoers, and the lesbian stars do not appeal to men. And I was like, it's 1962.
Wait,
what
lesbians?
I know. I was like, are we talking about Marlene and Dietrich?
Wow, I love that he says that so matter-of-factly.
Yeah, he's just like, well, obviously, if it's a movie about lesbians, like, men don't want to go see
it.
Again,
I think that's another one of these points where you're just like, that's kind of still true
that's
today,
true.
And I'm
right,
buying
it's like,
that.
we were talking about, it's just like, most guys want to watch like an Avengers Statham, your basic straight guy movie, Jason Statham.
Yes. Yeah, I
Training
mean, they don't want to watch like
they want to watch Big Lebowski.
What's it called? Disobedience or whatever.
Right. Well, right. They definitely don't want to watch Disobedience, but then they're also not being like, I need to watch Booksmart with like Beanie Feedlestein.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe a lot of like cucked boyfriends are like watching Booksmart.
Well, it's true.
People are always being like, I liked it. But
Booksmart?
Yeah.
It was so bad.
Okay.
And it was about lesbians. Like, I was wanting to like it more, but it was really like too much of a fake movie.
Someone the other day said they liked it in this way that I could tell that they didn't really like it.
I liked it.
Yeah. It was very that vibe.
No, I mean, that's the thing. It's like, obviously, we are not trying to like, unless I'm like in such a, manly mood. I mean, last night I did watch Sopranos. But that's like actually ultimate like straight girl fodder. Anyway, but
the way I'm just like, when did every single person become
obsessed with The Sopranos?
A girl who watches The Sopranos.
And just like only
became
tweets
the
about
only personality in the past year.
It literally, everyone's like, I rewatching it and just being like, yes, I'm gonna start dressing like Furio. Sorry, boyfriend.
I'm just like, I don't know.
No, it's like last.
Yet another show that I can't watch now because too many people like it.
No, they ruined it.
Right. Put it on the Succession and the Game of Thrones pile. Like, sorry, I can't do it.
It became a rebellion for me to watch Sopranos because my parents were like, it's actually like so racist against Italians and we shouldn't be glorifying the mafia.
Yeah.
And like we need to be only watching like Italian movies where they're like opera singers. Didn't make sense because we watch like Godfather and Goodfellas all the time. But anyway, so didn't watch that obviously then. But yeah, now it's just become like Twitter girl.
Yeah.
And yeah.
It sucks when something you love becomes embraced by everyone.
I know.
And you want to be special.
Yeah.
And advertising can help make you feel special. Okay, wait. Okay, so my favorite advertisements from as a kid, like, to me, VW was like the advertisement thing.
Have we already talked about this in the pod?
I don't think so.
Because, oh my God, like to have a Jetta ad?
The Jetta ad, I mean, those ads were like so iconic. And the like, obviously the Mitsubishi ad with the hand out the window that's playing telepop music is very iconic. But like,
you're so Mitsubishi. There was, maybe I was talking about.
Yeah, I'm very just like, I wish I was a girl in a newsie with like a really small bag that I just bought.
Tiniest bag. There was this VW ad where it was like total barista era. It was like this girl like opening up her Jetta and she was like a barista caterer and she had like 2 jugs of coffee and was like, I'm a barista and so I need my Jetta. I'm on the go. And like it invented women on the go, women carrying coffee, women drinking coffee on the go. And I was like, I need a Jetta.
See, that's funny. So that spoke to function. To me, the VW ads that were the most effective were the emotion ones that were just like putting it in this kind of like cool dude space. There was the one, do you remember the windshield wipers one where the Jetta's going down the street or the Passat or whatever's going down the street and the windshield wipers are going, it's raining, and everyone on the street is sort of in time to the windshield wipers. So there's like someone passing a box to someone else. Someone's like tossing a pizza and like
you're
everything.
So like rhythmic.
It's rhythmic and you're just like, whoa, cool. Like everything's like in tune. There was another one that like had a Nick Cave song in it and like me being that indie was so like, oh my God, the Jetta will like let me be indie.
Well, I mean, that sounds like this VW barista was like, it's not just function. You're this cool indie music listening.
Yeah.
Coffee drinking.
Right. Millennial. I mean, it was inventing the millennial generation when we were just like kids.
It was Gen X telling people to be millennials.
Wow. They invented us. That's so funny because we think that generations are at war, but like they literally invented us with VW ads.
My other all-time favorite ad is actually a PSA. And that is...
Oh, wait. Of course. Rachel Leigh.
Rachel Leigh.
Yeah.
This is your brain.
Yeah.
On heroin. And she smashed it.
That ad is obviously iconic. I mean, also because she's like so thin and hot and like in a beater.
And just like in a beater and like dark hair. Which I guess that goes to his point. That's when I liked watching a sex kitten.
What would be your dream client to work for?
Ooh, it's a good one.
So I actually would like to go for something like Air France. I think that would be really fun.
Yeah, I'll ask. Oh, so sorry. Let me tell you, Stephen. What's your dream client to work for?
Yeah, so it's like I've done a lot of like hotel companies. The thing about working for big companies is it's not fun, as he says in this book. Yeah. It's rule by committee. Also, the part about not wanting to work for associations, I think, is very true. Do you remember when I worked for the National Fisheries Institute when I worked in politics?
No. The Fish Institution?
Big Tuna, is my boss called it.
Okay.
And I ghost wrote that op-ed for Senator Saxby Chambliss of Alabama, where he was telling the FDA to change their guidelines on fish consumption for pregnant women.
Oh, okay, for like the mercury. Because he was like, he was like,
actually, mercury is not bad.
Oh, and he was like, I need my pregnant ladies of Alabama to be eating a lot more
fish because there was a lot of essential amino acids in there that do stimulate neurodevelopment in the fetus.
Well, wasn't that like a whole thing, whatever, with like the last COVID relief bill? It was like all about like carp.
Right. And they're just like putting in so many like subsidies for like the
big carp,
but like also to like kill invasive carp.
Yeah, I think it was like about killing carp. And you're kind of like, wow. Well, to quote our favorite show about the lesbian detective fish cop.
Oh, Hightown.
Yeah. Anyway, fishery, there's a lot of laws.
What did she say?
Well, the whole show is them just being like, you're nothing but a fish cop.
Right.
So, anyway, there's a lot of fish laws.
When you start working for Big Tuna, you become the fish cop. I would also really love to do a country or a town because I feel like they do have the worst advertising. Like, oh, wait, have you seen those ads?
When it's just like Ohio.
No, have you seen those ads? Like, I think they're in like the Bedford stop for Philadelphia. And
I've seen the ones for Baltimore and the Bedford stop.
Or maybe that's what I'm thinking of. Same difference, fucking Baltimore and Philly. And they're just like, your people are waiting. And it's just like a guy in a bucket hat.
And it's like, oh, so this bucket-hatted guy is waiting for me?
This is my people? Like,
I think...
that violates a rule he says, which is like, don't advertise something that people can just get at home. It's like, I can see guys in bucket hats on the fucking train I'm on.
I think you and I could slay an ad for Baltimore.
Yeah, we could tear it up.
Yeah. I don't know why this company is coming to me. And I don't even think it's the dream company I want to work for.
Say it.
7-Up. I don't know why. It just came to me.
Yeah.
I've always loved their colors.
They're very
I love
90s and sort of basketball. And
it's basketball stuff, but it's not. Well, Sprite was kind of the ultimate basketball soda, and 7-Up actually
is the sort of lesser than.
Yes.
The one that they have on planes.
It's
and they're just like,
it's airport.
Is
like,
7-Up okay? And you're like, well, I guess it has to be.
I always think 7-Up tastes better than Sprite, but that's because it's like rare. I don't know. It's almost 60s.
I mean, it just tastes like airplane to me. It tastes so like metallic.
I would love to be so corny and just do an ad for Converse.
But are you, again, we're talking about you having to like write the ad, like not like be in the ad.
Be starring.
It's
in
not
the ad.
starring.
No, that's what I'm saying.
We're developing the campaign here.
I'm saying I want to develop for 7-Up.
What's your concept? It's Kamala.
No, I mean, yeah, it's Kamala.
Ella Emhoff.
It's Ella Emhoff being like super throwback in a bucket hat, like a 7-Up bucket hat. And it's her knitting to a beat while drinking 7-Up.
Cool. No, and it's like got this like sick ass beat, and it's like
and we're kind of like collabing with different like local record stores and different like garage kind of like techno indie artists.
It could be like Come to Philly.
Yeah, and it's like Come to Philly, like taste the 7-Up.
I think that could work.
You know?
I think especially people like in New York who should just probably be living in Philly anyway.
I also think maybe bringing back 7-Up as like a mixer in like a chic retro way. Like a 7 and 7. That was the thing. Like
I think that's a better idea. Is that you're getting so like Saint Germain activation about it, and you're having this like big thing in Hudson Yards or like Red Hook, and it's just being like 7-Up X, like DJ Skokie, like X.
I know,
North
actually,
Face,
it is so 70s.
and
We're bringing back the sunken living rooms, and everyone's having 7 and 7.
Yeah, 7 and 7.
7 and 7.
It's like gin and 7-Up. Wait, no, it's this big, massive sunken living room installation at this like Red Hook warehouse.
Right, and we're all having these like retro cocktails like made with 7-Up because it's just like we're feeling like we wear pants to work now. Like it's not the 20s of mixology where we're smoking glasses, you know? It's a cool cup, it's ice.
Okay, wait.
It's a liquor, it's 7-Up.
And there's like influencers giving out cigarettes, but they're like candy cigarettes or something.
Oh, right, because we don't want to really
No, we're not
promote,
actually pushing, and it's all ages, and there's laws against smoke, whatever, inhalation, corona, etc.
Right.
Everyone's vaccinated.
Of course, everyone is distanced and vaccinated at this 7-Up Hudson
at this sunken
Yards.
activation.
See, and that's what a pitch room is. I was here all of it. In 2 minutes, we went from knitting,
right,
and we found the activation.
No, I know. You A to C. I know it's just like improv, and I think that's such an important skill. And when I'm hiring at my agency, I always say, "Have you ever done improv?" Because it's so important to this business.
Next up,
our new and improved segments. What does she wear? What does she eat? How does she live?
Yes, but
iconic unison vibes.
Wow.
What does she wear?
What does she wear? He wears Hathaway shirts.
He wears Hathaway shirts. He wears the companies that he works for.
Yeah, and he doesn't, he said Arrow was the big shirt, but he
went with Hathaway. Because he was a Hathaway man. He's definitely wearing a suit to work. Obviously, this isn't current branding culture where you wear,
whatever, a bonobos and a bucket hat.
And a bucket.
I mean, so on the front of the book, he's wearing, just, I would say, a classic dark suit, a gorgeous handkerchief, a Hathaway shirt
square,
and a tie.
I mean,
beautiful cufflinks, glasses, but he's not wearing them. He's holding them.
The only industry where people wear suits anymore is politics and
finance. Oh, but no, they wear the fleece.
Hello, they wear the fleece.
But then I think on pitch or big days, you wear the suit, right?
Even then, I don't know. I think maybe and like some of the higher ups and some of the older men and like some of the older British men at the finance place, but it's mostly fleece town.
Right. So, I mean, I wish we could go back to when men wore hats, darling.
Yeah. When people got dressed for work.
He talks about like types of ties that are very like old British, like, and you have your like Brixton striped tie, and you have your Buxton like diagonal striped tie, and they're like on pitch days you wear. I'm sure he was like on pitch days you wear red, and like. These days you wear gray, and
I could see him having like a superstition where he's like, and I have to have my lucky
tie,
green handkerchief that's in my briefcase, that's on my settee, and like it just sits there.
And
but
the
he knows
perfect cufflinks that he wears, like on Fridays.
They were given to him by Lord Manor Chesilbury at the annual like Cranberry Fest in Donning.
Okay, to segue into what does he eat? Do you remember when he tells the story about how this rule where
he's also so pomade, I want to say.
Oh yeah, I mean his
Obviously.
hair is. I mean it's staying there, but it's
He's
deeply
also, like,
parted to the side.
Well,
it's
that's just,
not
I
like.
think, well, that's his widow's.
Oh yeah.
But I do feel like, and this is why I do think that pharmaceutical companies, not the one I'm currently working for, but are like killing America. I feel like men used to be less bald. I feel like more men had hair in the 50s.
I think they were slicking it back for like a long time. So it was just like flatter on the head. You know what I mean? I also think I think that's not true because there were so many men who were going bald.
Oh, maybe they just all had toupees also.
Yeah, it was so toupee, and then they were gelling the toupee with like
maybe.
Murray's pomade. And then if you think of so many old like the Larry Davids, like everyone's dad was just like had the puffiest male pattern baldness.
Male pattern sinus where it's this full like monk ring around your
right, and
head.
now
Yeah.
like men know to like
keep that cropped.
keep it cropped.
I
was thinking, what does he eat?
I feel like it's so Carol and everything is just like
yes,
cream spinach.
Okay,
Creepy.
get out of my brain. Well, before that, he was saying about how like pitching wise, never like pitch someone after lunch. And he like pitches Mr. Seagram's.
Okay, what's so
and
funny-
Mr. Seagram's he falls like asleep and then
But
is so
this
grumpy.
is because lunches in the 50s
right, we're five
martinis.
yeah.
Where it's like today, I actually think I've often said the best time to email
is
someone
after the grain bowl.
is after their grain bowl because they've been hangry all morning.
Yeah.
And then they have their sweet green and at like 1:30 they're checking their email and they're in a much better mood.
Well,
but
and
it's not the end
also-
of the day where they're just like, let me get the fuck out of here.
Our generation is much more people are like kind of skipping breakfast, just getting the cold brew, so they're super hangry.
They're so hangrissimo.
So yeah, I think he's like going to a French restaurant and he's like having a beret, like le saucier, like frog leg. But then like on a Wednesday, I feel like he's so plain. He's like, I have Macallan's Irish oatmeal for breakfast that my wife makes me. And then like something very plain. I wish we could.
It's plain all day and then a fab dinner, which I actually kind of do agree with.
Right. I'm sad. I feel like he fully gives us our segment where he says all the things he wears and eats.
Oh, wait. Okay, wait. Can I read that? Oh, wait. I'm going to.
Do you have it?
I have it. This section. Okay. This is perfect. I always use my clients' products. This is not toadyism, but elementary good manners. Almost everything I consume is manufactured by one of my clients. My shirts are Hathaway, my candlesticks by Steuben, my car is a Rolls Royce, and its tank is always full of Super Shell. I have my suits made by Sears Roebuck. At breakfast, I drink Maxwell House coffee or Tetley tea and eat 2 slices of Pepperidge Farm toast. I wash with Dove, deodorize with Ban, and light my pipe with a Zippo lighter. After sundown, I drink nothing but Puerto Rico rum and Schweppes. I read magazines and newspapers, which are printed on paper from the mills of international paper. When I go on vacation in Britain or Puerto Rico, I get my reservations through American Express and travel by KLM or P&O Orient lines. And why not, pray tell? Are these not the finest goods and services on earth? I think they are, and that's why I advertise them.
Slow clap at the advertising room.
Yes!
That is, I think, the best. That's the best paragraph in the book. That's what I was saying. You fell for that, honey.
I fell for it. Hook, line, and
it.
sinker. No, he literally says that. He's like working for his clients in this book.
Yeah.
Done.
It's just like, I'm sure he goes to Italy. I mean, my favorite was I read magazines from like General Paper Mills.
Yeah, no.
Just like, sorry, where was this paper made? Life magazine switched their paperies, so I stopped reading them.
Wait, that would be like literally an ad for the paper company.
I switched.
And it would be this Holly housewife, and she would just be like, they switched, and so did I.
Carol needs her magazines.
Only on international paper.
Okay, then the other iconic part in How Does He Live, we know where this like record player company wants, to send him their products. And he's like, I need to see how it looks in my home and like need to see how it sounds. And then they're just like, great. And they're like, what kind of style is your home? And they're assuming like modern, like he is the John Hay, he is Mad Men, he's mid-century. And he's like, no,
Oh, and then they're like, deco? And he's like, no. And they're
No.
like, international style? And
Yeah,
he's like,
thinking it's like Buddhas, as we said. Like, I mean, as all celebrities are Buddhas, which he is not. And then he just goes...
international style actually means a different thing.
What is international? Like French? Like...
It's this term that's from like the 70s, and it means like big, like glass square tables. It's like a specific kind of modern.
I thought he meant like, are you having like ancient Chinese
I don't think
stuff?
anyone was doing Buddhas at that time.
Well, actually, someone was.
Who?
Well, there's this iconic...
Okay. Damn, okay. Wow, you really seeded this mystery.
Just like, so there's this iconic museum that's very like off-road beaten things to do in America called House on the Rock that I went to in Wisconsin. And it's this eccentric guy from the 60s who built his own house on the rock. And it was a mix. So there was like, he built a full like 1800s village with like an imitation 1800s like dentist shoppery and like an 1800s tea house.
Okay,
It's completely
so it's
insane.
Colonial Williamsburg.
Right, but then the place where he lives was fully like Chinese stuff and just like it was all second living rooms and like so much just like old Asia artifacts.
Okay. Well, I mean, I do think, okay, actually, I totally take that back because obviously, like, there's a lot of, like, Eames mid-century modern that is, like, Japanese stuff and Asian minimalism.
And then on Team Mame, Rosalind Russell is so, like, having so many dragons in her house.
I was thinking more of the Anna Singh way where it was, like, so, like...
No, he's not, like, fully Sheryl Crow with, like, like Kabbalah stuff.
Like Kabbalah stuff and, like, pizza oven noodle. But yeah, okay, that's right.
I just meant, like, like, 50s men were just being like, oh, like, I love this, like, old Chinese painting.
True. A lot of, and I think like fabric wallpaper and
tons of fabric wallpaper. Not tons, I think some. I think it's still, he's not going too wild. Okay, who are you in the book? I mean, I guess you're David because you're a madman, or you like his partner who he like loved but parted ways with.
Benson.
Yeah.
Because it was Ogilvy, Benson, and Mather. Yeah, I could, maybe he kind of like parted ways with me. I don't know if I could really run an agency. It seems
you
exhausting.
truly Ogilvy. Like maybe I feel like he's like, well, I'm 51 years old, but like most products for younger people. I think you are just one of his young bucks.
I think I'm like a young buck copywriter at the agency.
Yeah, and you're starting out, and you're Manhattan. You've been there for 3 years.
I'm wet behind the ears, but I've got fresh ideas. And he's like, and I love to hire young, so they come up in the company.
Right, and he doesn't give you good compliments a lot because that's not what he does.
No, and I actually, that's another truism of his that I agree with, where he's like, if you overpraise people, then they like won't work too hard because
they think they got it.
And they think they got it, and they also like they aren't like striving to achieve this really special thing. And then when you really grant this like praise for something really extraordinary, they understand what extraordinary is. And they strive to achieve it. Okay, I'm a young buck. I mean, I know you want to be like Helena Rubinstein.
with
her sharp wit and her acid tongue.
The vicious men are in the boardroom, and I'm just like, I want a day cream and I want it by tomorrow, boys.
But are you actually just like Lord Mabane, like at the House of Commons?
No, I was thinking, he talks about some lord that they like modeled a liquor off, and it was like a monk who became an alcoholic because like they sent him on like an adventure to try every liquor in the world.
Oh, that guy.
Yeah, and it was like Monk Sudley or something like that. Anyway, I'm just like, Mr. Seagram's falling asleep at lunch. I'm just like...
that part did remind me when he was like, when the Pope like disapproved of their like alcohol ad or whatever.
What happened?
Remember,
the Pope didn't like it. Yeah, it was
something had to be approved by the Pope for that winemaker, and they were like, oh, actually, just like the Pope says no. And I feel like that was very... Do you remember that time when I was branding Hyatt and I was writing the description of that hotel in Hawaii? And I like said that it like evoked the ancient Hawaiian like concept of something.
Okay,
and
they
then
canceled you.
And it came back and they were like, so actually like that particular spirit that you mentioned like is this like haunted ghost who does rape people in their sleep? And we can't actually have that associated with the hotel.
They're like, and please don't mention that ancient spirit. Thank you very much for all your work. Just invoice us and thank you.
That was a note from the like Hyatt Hawaiian.
Yeah. Well, I mean, thank God they caught that.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know who was even reading that description of that hotel.
But then, like, things are always going viral where it is, like, an ad for just, like, a stove company, and they're just being like, and it's blessed by the spirit. And then, like, some country is like...
Although, honestly, at this point, it's like, going canceled gets you viral, which gets people talking.
So
and it's actually
canceled.
kind of advertising you can't even buy. And maybe they're going to...
Very true. So you think I made a mistake and you should have...
I mean, if this was a little bit pre that era, I don't think it would have gone. I just don't think anyone would have cared.
Well, you don't know. You haven't been cursed and raped by that spirit, so... On that note,
Wait, have you had sex with a ghost? I feel like you have, though. I feel like you've said that you have.
Not in recent memory.
Okay.
Have I had sex with a ghost? I mean, kind of. I actually have. I currently do. I have for the past 5 years.
Wait.
Maya's a ghost.
Oh, because your girlfriend's so pale?
No. The house she grew up in was housed by the actress from the 20s, Mary Pickford.
Oh my God! Oh, and she is the ghost of Mary Pickford because their faces do look very alike.
They look very alike.
Oh no, you're dating a phantom.
Yes,
she's haunted.
I mean, do you think I just feel like, do you think your boyfriend is a ghost? I don't think he is. Maybe he is. Maybe you're a ghost.
I feel like I'm the ghost of like Alexander the Great's lover.
Okay. You wish, bitch.
Men in power are obsessed with me. They fuck me, then conquer lands.
You're just like jealous that like I'm with a ghost and like you're trying to make up these crazy stories.
I give this book 4 out of 5 billboards. I mean, it really spoke to me as someone who is familiar with this industry. I also think it's extremely easy to read. It's a quick read. It's just fun. And I think it's also, there's a lot that's useful in here, no matter what industry you're in.
No, I think it's very useful. And it is that like, there's a lot of lists going on. Obviously, I feel like go towards more. I wish there was a little more in his childhood and like being abused by just like the nuns, in my rating system. Cause it's like, I feel like I gave, Tegan a 4 out of 5. Like I wasn't so page turning in this like, insane YA lesbian way, but I also love the book and it's hard to compare because it's in its own kind of, in a business genre. I feel like as a business book, I give it a 4 out of 5.
Yeah.
Of like a how-to, because I do think, especially since it's so old, a lot of the stuff you really can apply.
I think it's so important because we've lost so much of our history and we live in such a now culture that's like nostalgic for the super recent past, and we forget like how much we have in common with our ancestors.
Our advertising ancestors,
yes.
Exactly.
Well, it's kind of like how Kevin Gannett in the last book was saying like how his basketball playing is like built off the greats. And it was like, he's taking tips from like, from the people who came before him. And even as consumers.
Well, I also feel like,
we're consuming things our mothers consumed. Our mothers bought Dove.
He's talking to the reader like you're his coworker.
Yes.
Which is cool. He's not just being like,
doesn't talk
hey,
down to you.
I'm a rich, it's not like snake oil. Like, I'm a rich businessman and like, this is like how you can do it. It's kind of just like, hey, we're all copywriters here.
Yeah.
Here's some tips.
It's actually, I think it really respects the reader in a very high-minded way.
Because he respects who he's advertising to. He's going to respect his reader.
And he respects the products, and he respects the rum of Puerto Rico, the country that he did save. Okay, next book.
Next book is Whose Bed Have Your Boots Been Under? That's not the name of the book, but that's my favorite song. It's Shania Twain. It's a weird intro for that. Anyway, you know her. You love her.
Shania Twain. The book has to do with boots, though. It's called These Boots Are Made for Walking?
No, that's a famous song.
Nancy Sinatra.
That's Nancy Sinatra. But
anyway, it's by Shania Twain. You know who she is.
You don't need the title of the book because you know who she is. Icon.
We're going to get into country music, sweetheart.
Hell yeah.
Another one of our passions.
Huge passions of ours. All right, ciao, ladies.
Got vaccinated. Best. Reporting live for the BBC in Jakarta, this is Celebrity Book Club. Celebrity Book Club is presented by Prologue Projects and HeadGum. The show is produced in Taipei by Meg Manane with editorial support from Andrew Parsons and Leon Nafak in Rome. Engineering by Faris Monchi. Original theme song by Stephen Phillips Horst in Alberta. Artwork by Teddy Blanks at Chips NY. Follow us on Twitter at CBC The Pod. Subscribe on your favorite podcast app. Leave us a review and don't forget to tell your mates about us. For BBC, this is Stephen Phillips Horst in Venezuela, in Caracas, in Addis Ababa.
That was a HeadGum podcast.